What's up, guys? Here with another, NBA prediction. And now, when teams get limited early, I feel like, some matchup are going to come soon and some going to come much later, due to long series. But I know that some series are, a couple of those series are like swept in like 4 games or, general sweep, in 5 games, right? So yeah. And some series might potentially go to Game 7. This is why we already have a matchup already, right? I mean, the matchup just came up so soon, right? And I feel like, the semi-conference finals, game doesn't start until like, at least until like May, right? So, yeah. So anyway, we got the Cavaliers, versus, the Pacers, right? And we're still waiting, the other 3 matchups, right? That's going to pretty much, come pretty soon, as soon as teams get eliminated, right? So one of my opinions, who's gonna come down series? So I think I'm gonna pick the Cavaliers, right? That's still obvious, but yeah, the Cavaliers in the previous series, versus the Heat, I know that the Heat has no chance of beating the Cavs, right? And this series should be much tougher too, right? And same thing goes with the Thunder, right? They're both number 1. You'll see, whether to the West or Eastern Conference, right? Their next opponent is gonna be a lot more tougher than, the opponent that they previous faced, and they just like sweep them from the face of the earth, right? The Pacers is gonna be a much tougher opponent comparing to the Miami Heat. Well, hopefully, right? So the series can be exciting, right? But I don't think that series can go to 7. It may go to 7, but I don't see that happening, right? So yeah, the Cavaliers and the Thunders are the team that are undefeated in the playoffs, right? But when we get to like their next matchup, they're not going to be undefeated. So yeah, so how many games do you think the Cavs are going to eliminate Pacers? Well, I say at least 5 games, right? Well, to be honest, I have to put respect on the Pacers. They are pretty dangerous, and yeah, I say 6 games at most, in 5 or 6 games, right? So yeah, so let me go over, the roster of, the Cavaliers, right? The Cavaliers roster is really good, They have so many weapons. They have Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, and they have like other, role players, that can, that can play hard and shoot, teams, out of the gym, right? And then the Pacers, they only have like Tyrese Halliburton, and Pascal Siakam, and they got some other role players. But I feel like, the Pacers don't have enough, to stop the Cavaliers. I don't think they have enough. And the Cavaliers are going to advance to the, to the conference final. Right, and I did forgot to mention, a couple things, my previous video about the NBA, right? The Cavaliers manhandled the Heat without Darius Garland. That is another thing. Darius Garland is another key player, to the Cavaliers, right? So yeah, like imagine, like beating the Miami Heat this bad, with an injured, players, right? That is insane, right? So yeah, I think that Darius Garland needs to come back, so that way, the Cavs should have enough firepower, to stop the Pacers, right? So yeah, let's say game 1, game 2. So I feel like, the Cavaliers should definitely take care of their home court, If not, I feel like the Pacers could still win the game, but it might happen, it might not happen, right? And then game 3, game 4, it goes to the Pacers, right? And they're definitely going to get a win over there, right? So yeah, then game 5, game 6 is, is when, the Pacers is about to get eliminated, right? So how can Pacers win 2 games? They can either still 1 game at the Cavs or 1 game, in game 3 or game 4. So one of those games, depending on the adjustment, right? So yeah, hopefully it will, be a blowout, right? And I will be surprised if the series goes to game 7, or I will be surprised if the Cavaliers swept the Pacers again. That means that, yeah, we totally exposed the Pacers, but the Pacers, totally, dominated the Bucks, right? if the Cavaliers sweep the Indiana Pacers, you know, if that happens, that means that the Cavaliers are a really dangerous team and they might go for a title contender, right? And I'm like, whoever comes out of the East, I think the East is gonna win the championship, right? Has a much better chance comparing to the West, because when I look at the West side, yeah, they got some pretty good team, but then you know, I feel like the East is stronger than the West this year, right? That's just me, you know. That's just how I look at it. That's just in my opinion, right? So, yeah. Even though, you know, I do not want to underestimate the Pacers, right? I just don't underestimate any teams, you know, period, right? There could be lots of surprises, right? But yeah. But please, you know, NBA, please don't make this series, you know, a cakewalk, right? So yeah, the Thunder and the Cavs just had their, you know, cakewalk, you know, on their first series. But this second series, maybe you know, they're gonna lose probably at least one game. So yep, much tougher and much more exciting, right? So yeah, I'm just hoping it's not gonna be a sweep again, right? But who knows, you know, whether it's injury or not, right? Or whether, you know, player get ejected, or I don't know, you know, what can truly change the outcome. So bye-bye.